Welcome to CSL Denver, a place, a face, and a space of love. A spiritual community teaching universal principles and applying ancient wisdom to empower our lives and the lives of others. We're so glad that you're here today as we kick off September with a theme called Love Out Loud. Love out loud. Boy, and I bet you if you look around today, you can say we need to turn the volume up on the love out loud. Because everywhere we look, we can see that there is a place where love can fit in. We can see a place where love is needed to be displayed out loud. So that when we meet one another, when we hear of someone in need, when we think about all the goodness, as Bill was talking about in this world, we want it to be out loud. We don't want it to be something that's, as they say, held close to your chest, right? Because without love, all is lost. And so as we go through this idea of loving ourselves and the courage to love ourselves, it is probably one of the most vital and most profound themes in our lives that we're ever going to deal with. That we're ever going to deal with. That means beyond your job, beyond your family, beyond your relationships, beyond all of that. Because I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard this: if you can't love yourself, you can't love nobody else. And given our different backgrounds and our different understandings of what love means, and the whole idea of courage to stand front and center in face of fear or doubt or inconsistencies is a hard thing to do. But to a person, if we were to ask some of the people we admire, athletes or orators or entertainers, if we ask them, what was the pivotal thing in your life that gave you the courage to be who you are? I would submit that half, if not all of them, would say, I came upon an obstacle. I had this skill, I had this talent that I kind of innately knew, but I ran into something that gave me some doubt. But the call within was stronger than the doubt without. And as a result, I began to love myself. I began to have the courage to live out loud. So the question today is, it's a tough one. Get ready, hold your seat. Do you love yourself? Not that superficial love where you get in the mirror and get dressed up and, ooh, I look good. Not that kind of love. Not that kind of love. That's superficial love. We're looking for that love that says, boy, I look horrible this morning, but I'm going out anyway. I'm going to do my thing anyway, because I know that there's a spark within me that the divine mind of the super intelligence of the universe has placed specifically and only in me. Nobody else. Often imitated, but never duplicated. That's the story. You are often imitated, but never duplicated. So when you can live your life that way, when you can approach all things that way, the obstacles are just stepping stones. Now, there was a song, I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to sing it because I won't do it justice. But there was this song that I'm sure that most of you remember by Whitney Houston. The greatest love of all. The greatest love of all. And I'm going to mix the verses up a little bit because I want to make this point. The first thing that I want to make that she said is easy to achieve this greatest love. She said, but you got to go inside to find that love. It's not out here. It's not in a person. It's not in a place. It's not in a thing. The greatest love of all is inside. And it's easy to achieve. But it's a process. She says, learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. But the key word there is learning to love yourself. How many of you take a practice of learning to love yourself? We got a hand in the audience. Yeah, well, I know. It's a shock because it's something that we're not taught to do. We're not taught to love ourselves. We're taught to compare ourselves. We're taught to judge ourselves. We're taught to see if we measure up. But when we can get in touch with that love within, that divine spark that resonates with everything in the universe, you know, there's the song, some of you might remember this musician called Billy Preston. He said, I got a song that don't have any words. I got a dance that don't have no steps. I'm going to let the music, in other words, I'm going to let the divine move me around. I'm not worried about what you dancing. You just standing still. You're not dancing. But I love myself enough to know where my strengths are. So I don't worry about that. I allow that voice, that spark, that divine essence that is within each and every one of us to take hold. To take hold. Now, there's that spark, and this first slide I want to bring up, I think, really sets the stage by Marianne Williamson. And it says, she says this: we are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in every one. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. So in essence, what she's saying, what we're saying, what the whole universe is saying, we need each other to show up authentically for us to shine. If I do it and you don't do it, or you do it and I don't do it, I mean, it might be nice, but it ain't the greatest love of all. It's not the greatest love of all, because you need courage to do that. Courage to fail, courage to be rejected, courage to not always know where you're going. You know, there's the poem that says, this poem called Mother to Sons. It says, I've been where there's been tacks in it, boards torn up, and places where there ain't been no light. But I'm still climbing. I'm still rising. And that's how we have to look at life. Life is a conglomerate of things. And it's us who puts labels on those things as good or bad, or whatever vernacular we want to use to describe them. But from a divine perspective, it just is, just like love is. And when we can tap into that, the isness of life, we've already tapped into the love. We've already tapped into the love. And so this profound idea of taking care and accepting who we are and what we are and living love out loud is the theme for this month. And I would challenge each one of us to take a journal or take coloring crayon, make a picture, I don't care, but take something to express what loving yourself looks like, what loving yourself sounds like. Because it's different for everybody. There is no formula. And so I'm going to give you 3 keys to help you on that journey, to get you started, to move you in this direction of self-love. Because one thing, it's a challenge, and I'm sure some of it have done it to ourselves and most definitely to somebody else. When we see someone who's extremely confident and sure of their self-love, we got some favorite words for him. Oh, he's arrogant. Oh, she's conceited. Right? But when you get to know them, you see an outward expression of what they need to exhibit who they are, their authentic self, the love within, knowing that God and I can take care of all things. If you want to join in, that's fine. But if you don't, that's fine as well, because I have a self-love, divine connection inside that I am courageously standing in. And by doing that, I'm going to give everybody else the opportunity to do the same. And when we can work together and fight through that and come up with this grand symphony of life, all is done. All is done. So the first thing that we need to do, and bring up this first slide, this next slide here, because it's key in that self-care or self-love is never a selfish act. It is the simple, good stewardship of our own gifts that you or I have when we were put on earth to offer to others. So our gift is what we have to offer to others. And so to do that, the first thing we have to do in terms of these three spiritual keys to self-love and having that courage is to confront the inner critic. To confront the inner critic. How many times have you said, it's a cliche, I'm not good enough, or I don't have the right this, or I didn't come in the right package, or I didn't come from the right family. And those critics are always running in the background. We have to confront that. We have to confront that. There's a technique that some of you may be familiar with by Hal and Sidra Stone called voice dialogue. And it works from this whole outcome of the inner critic. And they give this way of explaining it as if you have to see yourself as the conductor, your authentic self, the true self, the self that God has made whole, perfect, and complete. Everything else is grafted off of that. But when you can step in the conductor, oh, and by the way, from that position, there is not any of the various aspects of yourself that are not needed, wanted, or valued. It's all good. But as the conductor, you have to know when to bring up the bad boy or the bad girl. And more importantly, know when to turn them down. Right? Because sometimes we need to have a little bravado when someone's trying to take advantage of us. We need to have a little courage to speak up for ourselves, to stand up for ourselves. That's loving yourself. Letting someone take advantage of you is not. So we have to be able to look at and deal with this inner critic inside so that we can be the best that we can be. And it's a tough hurdle, because in our society, unfortunately, they've taught us, well, you don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. But I'm hurting my feelings by not speaking my truth. When has it become so important for me to make you feel good that I feel bad? But that inner critic will tell you that. It will direct you to do that. So you can be light, so you can be looked at in a fair way and all of the other stuff. That's not why we're here. That's not why we're here. Sometimes you may have to ruffle a few feathers. The second thing within that whole self-critic thing is the judging. We judge ourselves far too much. I'm in the mirror again. Do I have the right clothes for this event? Did I put the right polish on? Did I get my hair cut just right? We're judging it. It's not the one that's in style now. It's not in vogue. But love has been around since, I don't even want to give a date. It doesn't worry about being in vogue. It worries about being itself. As Stevie Wonder said, love's in need of love today because we are taking our part. Love is the constant of love. The divine love is always here, but we have not taken our place in that symphony. We need the courage to do that, to love ourselves, so that this love becomes an effervescence that's everywhere. That's everywhere. So we have to learn to have the courage to silence that inner critic. Not permanently, but know when to bring up the various parts so that we can live a full life. Now, the second thing, if you bring up this next slide, the second thing on setting healthy boundaries. Marianne Williams says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. You play small. Your playing small does not serve the world. And so it is. And we should get this verse, or this little part from her book, Return to Love. And if you have not read the book, Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, I encourage you to do so. And if you've read it, I encourage you to read it again. I think I'm going to start it again today because it is a powerful book on love in all its phases. But most importantly, yourself, so that you don't become inadequate or think you are inadequate. So when we look at setting healthy boundaries, that's a part of it. If you heard me say it once, you heard me say it 1,000 times. My favorite song from Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold. You got to know when to walk away. You got to know when to run. You never count your winnings while you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. That's setting boundaries. If I'm in the game, my cards are not really that good this time, I'm folding. I'm not going to sit there and try to bluff because I'm setting healthy boundaries. I'm setting up points and milestones and things that say, hey, this don't seem to be that good for you. Yeah, that's a good little crowd. They're popular, but they're vexed to your soul. Maybe you need to set some boundaries and say, I'm going to hang out with you halftime, not all time, or quarter time, not half time. Because I do like your company, but boy, when I'm around y'all, I can't keep it together. So you have to learn to set some healthy boundaries. Have to help the boundaries. And in addition to setting the boundaries, we have to begin to prioritize taking care of yourself. Prioritize taking care of yourself. That's setting healthy boundaries. Service is good. Now, don't get me wrong. We know we come here to love, serve, and remember. But love came before the service. And that means I got to love myself enough to know when I need to serve me and not somebody else. Setting healthy boundaries. Because if you don't set some healthy boundaries, guess who's going to step in? That inner critic. He coming. He just waiting. He's just laying like this. Waiting for the moment. As soon as you get off your guard, soon as you begin to start doubting yourself and not set boundaries to fortify yourself, that critic that we don't need in this particular moment comes in and say, I know you couldn't do it anyway. See? Why you even tried? I told you that before you tried. But that's not who we are. That's not who we are. We are pure love, which means we are pure energy that can go through any and everything. Right now, in this room, in your home, if you're listening at home, there are a numerous amount of energies, radio signals, TV signals, ham radio signals moving through your room. But you've set a boundary to look at this program or to hear this station. That gives us the power to do anything we want by loving ourselves. And I go listen to that other station tomorrow, but not today. I set a boundary for this today. So when we can begin to do that, we can set these healthy boundaries. We can move beyond and within limitations. Because unfortunately, we have had this idea planted that by setting a boundary, I've set a limitation. And I would say we haven't set a limitation, we've set a focus. By limiting something, I set a focus. If I had all the TV stations going on here at once, I couldn't pick up anything. It'd be just jibber jab. But by focusing in, or limiting, if you like that word, I can get right in line with what's mine and move forward. Now, if I get that next slide, because once we've dealt with the inner critic and once we've set some health boundaries, the thing is to embrace your authenticity. And it says this in Proverbs 19:8, to acquire wisdom is to love oneself. People who cherish understanding will prosper. People who cherish understanding will prosper, because this wisdom of self-love, of knowing how to deal with the critic, this wisdom of self-love, of knowing how to set boundaries, allows you, gives you permission to, and gives you the strength to be authentically who you are. Authentically who you are. And you know, I like to be authentic 100% of the time, but to be honest, I'm not. I just you know, as they say, tell the truth and shame the devil. I am not there 100% of the time, but I try real hard. I try real hard, and I'm aware, which I would say that most of you are. You're aware when you're not. You know when you ain't authentic. Nobody has to tell you. That's when that critic, that's when you are your worst critic or your best critic, when you peep yourself and say, ooh, I'm outside of the bounds right now. But now is the time that we need to be fully within ourselves. We need to have full courage to be, because we're still here because God has a plan. God has a talent, a skill that is vital for right now, that's needed to resolve something, even if it's to give somebody a smile. But if we aren't authentic to ourselves, if we're trapped in the critic war, or we can't set boundaries to say, you know, I can run track, but I can't play basketball, I'm too short. If you can't set that kind of boundary to your life, to how you serve, then I'll leave that to your imagination of where we may wind up. But this authenticity is the foundation of everything, of love, of you, of peace. Think about it. Think about it. What if a car was authentically trying to be a boat? That ain't gonna work. What if a chicken was authentically trying to be an eagle? That ain't gonna work. So why are we not trying to be our authentic selves? Why are we not trying to be our authentic selves? And so we want to be able to do that 100%. We want to be able to do that 100%. And so when we look at this next slide, we begin to work in that kind of a vernacular so that we know we are each gifted in a unique and important way. It is our privilege and our adventure to discover our own special light. It is a privilege and an adventure. Now, who doesn't like a good adventure? I like adventure. I went to see 3 movies in a week. I tell you, all of them were kind of adventurous, kind of stretched the boundaries of the imagination, looking for that way to discover. People go on adventures to discover things. And the biggest thing we can discover is our authentic self. So to have the courage to love ourselves, take the adventure. It's a privilege. It's a football season started yesterday, college football. And my wife was saying, how long are you going to watch that thing all day? We got some other stuff to do. But the thing is this, the challenge and the adventure that each team starts out at the beginning of the year with 0-0 in the win and loss column. That adventure has begun now. For them to show up authentically, whether they lost this week or won this week. They have the opportunity next week to deal with the inner critic that if they lost, to deal with the inner critic if they won and thinking they may be more than that. And they get a chance and a privilege. Because see, I'm just watching. I ain't got the privilege to play. I'm living vicariously through them. But they have the opportunity to engage authentically next week in this adventure. So just think about yourself. Just think. Start tomorrow. We got another game. We're preparing for the game of the week. You gotta evaluate. You gotta look at the critics. You gotta be true to what you're gonna do, and then you gotta execute. And so when we can do that, we have the courage to love and to be exactly who we are. And so as every week, we have a call to action. There's these, this information is great, but if we can't put it into practice, it's just that. It's just talk. So the first thing is to ask yourself, why are you here? Why are you here? Nobody can answer that but you. Now, people can give you hints and point you in the right directions and make some observations, but only you can understand why you're here. And you bring that back up one more time. And then the last thing is create a plan for self-discovery. Create a plan. If you're going on an adventure, and it could be simple. It could be camping. It could be biking. It could be hiking. You have a plan, even if it's just in your head. I need to take some water. I need to have my cell phone if I get lost. I need to know the route I'm going. You got to have a plan for the self-discovery of that God spirit of love that is in with each and every one of us. So when we can do that, we step into a whole new level of the game. And we can begin to be courageously in love with ourselves. Let us pray. We take this moment now to acknowledge within each and every one of us the presence of the divine love that creates all things. That love that heals, that love that sets us free, that allows us to step forth in a way that no one else can. Because we understand and know that the presence of God is always right on time, in the exact amount, in the appropriate presentation. And so when we can understand that in a loving way, in a courageous way, in a way that allows us to lock our focus on who we are, we can step forward with courage in a bold way, not discounting someone else, not being boisterous, but in a way that says, with God and I, all things are possible. So I can stand boldly in this place, in this idea, in this situation, knowing that I'm backed up by God and a host of angels. And so as we do that, we allow ourselves to be free, and we allow others to be free and to love and to live and to serve. And most of all, to remember exactly who we are. Children of the Most High God. Ready, willing, and able to do all things. And so I know right here, right now, for myself and for everyone here and anyone that's listening online, that we are accepting the mantle to embark on this adventure. Adventure of self-love, adventure of discovery, adventure of knowing that the destination is sure to be found if we take it honestly. And so it is in that understanding, it is in that embarking that I give thanks. I give thanks for the opportunity to be on this journey, to have this adventure, to be able to share, to be able to love, and to boldly stand in the idea that there's a universal presence that is always present and is reaching and uplifting us to our highest good. And so with that, I just release, I let go. I know that this prayer is absolutely so, and that it is already in activation in our lives. And with that, I just say, and so it is, amen. And